Have you ever heard the phrase that can destroy a marriage in just 5 words? I heard it. She understands me better. 5 words that my husband of 15 years said to justify why he was leaving me for his secretary. 5 words that he thought would explain why our family was being torn apart. 5 words that he never imagined I would use to create the most epic revenge moment a mediation courtroom had ever witnessed. My name is Rebecca, and this is the story of how I turned the worst betrayal of my life into the best lesson my ex-husband ever received. A story about how a 42-year-old woman, mother of 2 children, discovered that sometimes the best response to "she understands me better" is, "Great, then let's see if she understands this too." It all started on an ordinary Tuesday in March. I was preparing dinner when Richard came home with that expression I had learned to fear over the past few months. That mixture of guilt and determination that cowardly men make when they finally decide to speak a truth that should have been told months ago. "Rebecca, we need to talk," he said, dropping his briefcase on the kitchen counter with a sound that echoed through our house like a warning bell. After 15 years of marriage, you develop a sixth sense for these conversations. The tone, the timing, the way someone avoids your eyes while delivering life-changing news. I knew this conversation would change everything, but I had no idea how dramatically. About what, Richard? About us. About our marriage. About how things haven't been working for a long time. Over the past 6 months, Richard had become a stranger in our own home, arriving late with weak excuses, leaving early with urgent work emergencies, spending more time at the office than ever before in his career. When he was home, he seemed physically present, but mentally somewhere else entirely. Scrolling through his phone with secretive smiles, taking calls in other rooms, suddenly protective of his privacy in ways that made my stomach churn. "What exactly isn't working, Richard?" I asked, crossing my arms. "We don't connect anymore, Rebecca. We don't talk about things that matter. It's like we're 2 strangers sharing the same roof." Each word was like a stab. There was truth in them that I didn't want to admit. Our marriage had become mechanical routine. "And what do you propose we do about it?" Richard looked away. When someone can't look you in the eye during the most important conversation of the marriage, they've already made a decision that doesn't include you. "I think we need some time, maybe a temporary separation." "And where exactly do you plan to spend this time to think?" "I'm going to stay at the downtown apartment for a while. I've already talked to a realtor." A month. He had spent an entire month planning to leave our family while I cooked his favorite dinners, packed his lunches, washed his clothes, and managed our household like the devoted wife I thought I was. A month of living a complete lie while I worried about his stress levels and tried to make our home more welcoming. And the children? How do you explain to Emma and Jake that Daddy needs to think away from home? "We'll make it work. I'll pick them up on weekends, dinners some nights. They won't even notice the difference." "Richard," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "is there someone else?" I saw the exact moment he decided to lie. After 15 years, you learn to read someone's lies like neon signs. "Rebecca, this isn't about someone else. This is about us." But I already knew. The way he looked away, how his hands moved nervously to his phone, how his voice changed. "Who is she?" Richard ran his hand through his hair. "It's not important." "So there is someone." Silence, the kind that speaks louder than any confession. "How long have you been having an affair?" He sat heavily. 6 months. He whispered. 6 months. During Emma's birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, he was living a lie. "Who is she?" "It's Madison. Madison Thompson." Madison Thompson. The name resonated in my mind like a death knell. I knew Madison. She was the new executive secretary at Richard's law firm, 28 years old, recently graduated in administration, single, no children, no mortgage, no real responsibilities weighing her down. I had met her at the company Christmas party just 3 months ago, where she'd worn a stunning royal blue dress and charmed everyone in the room with her bright smile and infectious energy. Madison Thompson, the secretary who is half my age? She's not just a secretary. She has an MBA, she's intelligent, she what, Richard? And that's when he said it. The 5 words that would change everything. She understands me better. The silence was deafening. The sound of a marriage shattering, of 15 years being reduced to a cruel comparison. A woman you've known for 6 months understands you better than the wife who lived by your side for 15 years, who had your children, who built an entire life with you. Madison and I, we connect differently. She's interested in the things I'm interested in. We talk about philosophy, books, ideas. When was the last time you and I had a real intellectual conversation? The audacity of blaming me for his betrayal, as if I hadn't spent 15 years raising our children, managing our home, building my career while supporting his. You're right, I said, my voice ice cold. When was the last time we had an intellectual conversation? Maybe when I was helping you prepare arguments for the Johnson case, or discussing college options for Emma? But you're right. Conversations about our real life clearly don't compare to philosophical discussions with a woman who has no real responsibilities. At that moment, Emma came downstairs ready to go out with friends. "Can I sleep at Sarah's house tonight?" "Sure, sweetheart," I said, maintaining normal maternal tone while my world shattered. After she left, Richard and I looked at each other again. So that's it. 15 years end like this? It's not ending, it's just a break. Richard, stop lying. You already know what you want. You want Madison Thompson and the exciting life she represents. Richard stood up. "I'm going to pack some clothes and stay at the hotel tonight." "And Madison? Does she know you're married? That you have children?" "Of course she knows. And she's okay with being the reason a family is breaking up?" "The problems between us existed long before her. So now Madison is the innocent victim, the poor thing who found herself in a complicated situation?" Richard grabbed his keys. "I'm leaving. Tomorrow we'll talk about practical details." "Richard," I said as he reached the door, "do you love her?" "Yes," he said, quietly. "I do." And with those words, he left, leaving me alone with the realization that 15 years of marriage had ended because she understands me better. But Richard had underestimated one thing. After 15 years as a lawyer's wife, I had learned a lot about strategy. And if he thought Madison Thompson understood him better, I was about to give her the opportunity to prove it. The next 3 months taught me more about myself than 15 years of marriage had. I discovered I was stronger, more resilient, and definitely more strategic than Richard ever suspected. Explaining to Emma and Jake that Daddy was going through a difficult time was one of the hardest conversations of my life. Emma, always perceptive, asked direct questions. "Are you going to get divorced?" "We don't know yet, sweetheart. Sometimes adults need time to work things out." "But Daddy is dating that woman from the office, isn't he?" Jake had heard more than I thought. Children feel the changes in atmosphere, notice whispered calls, realize when you cry in the shower. "Yes," I said finally. "Daddy fell in love with someone else, and that's very complicated and painful for all of us." "Is she prettier than you?" Emma asked with brutal preteen frankness. "Beauty isn't the issue, love. Sometimes people are attracted to others for reasons that have nothing to do with appearance." In the second week, Richard came for more of his things. He was different, lighter, more animated. He had that energy people in love have, It was simultaneously painful and enlightening. "How are you, Rebecca?" "Surviving. The children are having difficulties." "I know. I talked to them." Richard seemed to want to justify himself. "Madison makes me remember who I used to be. When I'm with her, I feel like myself before all the responsibility, before feeling trapped. Trapped by our family. By the routine, the predictability. When was the last time we did something spontaneous, stayed up all night talking about dreams? Probably the last time we didn't have 2 children, a mortgage, and careers to manage. This thing you call prison, Richard, others call adult life. Madison doesn't make me feel old. Madison is 28. She's 14 years younger than you. She still thinks staying up until 3 discussing philosophy is profound instead of irresponsible." After he left, I started planning. The first thing I did was hire Patricia Williams, known for being brilliant and ruthless in divorce cases involving betrayal. Patricia had gone through her own difficult divorce, so she understood the personal pain behind legal procedures. "Tell me everything," Patricia said during our first consultation. I told her about the 6 months of affair, about Madison, about the phrase, "she understands me better." "What's your goal here, Rebecca? Reconciliation? Custody? Financial security? Or justice?" "I want him to understand the real consequences of his choices. He's living in a romantic bubble where he can have Madison and still be seen as a good father. He wants to minimize damage while maximizing happiness. And you want to burst that bubble?" "I want Madison to see exactly the type of man she fell in love with. I want her to understand that if he did this to me, he can do it to her too." Patricia smiled. "I like you, and I have ideas about how we can achieve your goals." It was Patricia who suggested the strategy that would change everything. During divorce mediation, we would request Madison's presence for financial discussions, since she was apparently an important part of Richard's future plans. Is that allowed? It's unusual but not prohibited, and Richard will have difficulty objecting without seeming like he's hiding something. And what will this accomplish? "Rebecca, Madison fell in love with a successful man who makes her feel special. She's never dealt with the reality of being a second wife. She's never heard the details of maintaining 2 houses, paying alimony, dividing time with children from another marriage." The plan was forming, and if some inconvenient truths about Richard came to light, that's when I told Patricia about Richard's anger problems, the credit card debts he'd accumulated, and the history Madison didn't know. "Patricia, Madison thinks she's special, but she doesn't know Richard had at least 2 other affairs in the last 5 years. Small ones, but showing a pattern. Do you have evidence? Emails, receipts, hotel records. I started documenting things when I became suspicious. So Madison thinks she was the first to awaken these feelings." "Exactly. She thinks what they have is unique." "Rebecca, what you're proposing is legal, but will be painful for everyone. Are you sure?" I thought about my children dividing time between houses, about Richard's lies, about Madison's arrogance. "I'm absolutely sure." "Then let's give Richard and Madison the chance to show how much they really know each other under the light of complete truth." As I left Patricia's office, I felt something I hadn't in months. Control. For the first time, I was making my own active choices. Richard had said Madison understood him better. In our divorce mediation, we were going to test exactly how deep that understanding was. The day of mediation arrived on a cold June morning. I dressed carefully, a navy suit Richard always said looked good on me. I wanted Madison to see exactly the type of woman he had discarded. Dr. Harrison's office was downtown in an imposing building. Patricia and I arrived early. Richard and his lawyer, James Morrison, arrived on time. Madison wasn't with them. "Where's your deep understanding advisor?" I asked Richard. "Rebecca, please, let's keep this civilized." I intend to be very civilized. Patricia and I thought it appropriate to include Madison in some discussions today, since she's apparently such an important part of your future decisions. Patricia joined in. We formally request Miss Thompson's presence for financial discussions, given she's apparently significant to your client's long-term plans. Her presence would be relevant. James frowned. This is highly irregular. But not illegal, Patricia replied. And if your client has nothing to hide, there should be no objection. Richard was visibly uncomfortable. Madison is working. How convenient. The woman who supposedly understands you better is too busy for decisions affecting your life. Dr. Harrison called us into his conference room. After introductions, Patricia made the formal request for Madison's presence. Richard practically choked. That's unnecessary. Why would it be unnecessary? Dr. Harrison asked. Richard was trapped. He reluctantly agreed. Great, I said. Can I call her? I'll call, Richard said quickly. The conversation was revealing. Madison, it's about mediation. Yes, today. They want you present. No, it's not optional. When he hung up, he looked defeated. She's coming. Wonderful. While we wait, let's start with financial overview. Dr. Harrison reviewed our assets. $650,000 house, $200,000 lake house, $550,000 in investments and retirement funds. Any significant debt besides the mortgage? Patricia dropped the first bomb. Yes, approximately $85,000 in credit card debt accumulated by Mr. Mitchell in the last 8 months. Richard paled. Those are legitimate expenses. Legitimate expenses in jewelry stores, expensive restaurants, hotels, romantic trips. Expenses clearly not for family spending. Madison arrived, beautiful but nervous. She'd never been in a divorce mediation before. After introductions, Dr. Harrison began. Miss Thompson, we understand you're significant to Mr. Mitchell's future plans. Are you aware of his financial obligations after divorce? Financial obligations? Madison seemed confused. Patricia explained. $3,000 monthly child support, $4,000 spousal support for 7 years, plus maintaining a residence suitable for weekend custody. Madison was calculating. $7,000 per month? Minimum, before considering the $85,000 credit card debt he accumulated during your relationship. Madison looked at the receipts Patricia spread out. $2,500 at Tiffany's. Richard, you said the bracelet was a family heirloom. $5,000 at the Ritz-Carlton? You said you had travel miles for these trips. I was trying to make you feel special, Richard said desperately. Feel special with lies? That's when I asked, Madison, when exactly did Richard tell you about our marriage? At the beginning, he said you'd been separated for months. Interesting, because your relationship started 6 months ago, but we only separated 3 months ago. Madison looked at Richard with horror. You were married when we started. Technically, yes, Richard admitted. Madison recoiled. There's no such thing as technically married. She left for a moment to process. When she returned, I delivered the final revelations. Madison, you want the truth? You're not the first. Patricia showed evidence of Richard's previous affairs with Sarah, Chen, and Jennifer Walsh. Richard, who are these people? Those were mistakes, moments of weakness. Moments lasting months? Patricia asked. Madison was devastated. You told me I was special, that you'd never felt this before. I continued revealing Richard's anger issues, his pattern of blaming others, his lies about everything. Madison finally stood up. I need to go. Madison, please, Richard begged. No, don't follow me, don't call me, we're done. And with that, Madison left, finally understanding exactly who Richard really was. The mediation concluded with Richard accepting all terms: shared custody, $4,500 monthly spousal support, $3,200 child support, and full responsibility for the credit card debt. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Richard lives alone, picking up the children on weekends. Madison moved to Seattle for a new job. As for me, I'm discovering who I am, outside of being Richard's wife. I started therapy, strengthened friendships, rediscovered hobbies. Emma told me one night, "Mom, you seem happier now, even when you're sad." She was right. There's sadness for what we lost, but also lightness from not living with lies anymore. Sometimes I wonder if Madison thinks about that day, if she's grateful for discovering the truth before it was too late. I choose to believe she is, because the truth, however painful, always sets us free. Richard told me Madison understood him better. In the end, he was right. She understood him perfectly, and that's why she left him. The funny thing about "she understands me better" is that it reveals more about the person saying it. Richard didn't want to be understood. He wanted to be admired without question. He wanted someone who didn't know his flaws. But real understanding comes from knowing someone completely and choosing to love them anyway. That takes years to build, not months. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the lake house porch watching Emma and Jake play in the water. This place used to be full of painful memories, but today I'm creating new ones, clean, honest memories that are mine. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. For the first time in years, there's no tension in the air, no lies, no secrets. Emma runs up, soaking wet. "Mom, you look different, more yourself." She was right. For the first time in years, I'm not trying to be the perfect wife. I'm simply being myself. And I've discovered I really like this person. Richard thought Madison understood him better, but in the end, the person who needs to understand us best is ourselves. And for the first time in 15 years, I finally understand myself completely. If this story shocked you, just wait for what's next. Leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and of course, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a single notification.